And we're live on ePaul. Every point's a winner. Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. It is the penultimate round of NRL. Some very interesting news over the last 24 hours. Adam O'Brien has gone, as we predicted here on ePaul. You didn't have to be Einstein to work that out, however. But a few other unsavoury incidences that we won't talk about. And some of it's got to do with the Eastern Suburbs Leagues Club side and some off-tab betting, behind-the-scenes betting with one of the South players. But as I said, we won't mention any names. No one's been charged at this stage. No one's been stood down as far as we know. So let's get on to the game at hand today. Hopefully there's nothing untoward tonight. It is $1.11. You can't get much skinnier for the third-place Bulldogs up against the seventh-place Panthers. Now, the Panthers have announced that they're going to rest all their top players. So what we need to do is have a look at the team lists. Hopefully you followed us last week. You would have been for the most minimal outlay of $30 for the whole weekend and continuing to play all the 8 games, even 7 games, you would have picked up close to $180 to $200 easy. So hopefully we can replicate that from last week. We had some great things go our way, including that amazing Golden Point victory with KO Weeks going over from an Ethan Strange pass, which got us great collects. But let's get on to what we really want to talk about. And tonight is at Accor Stadium. The sun's been out all day. There should be no problem with any wet weather underfoot there. You wouldn't think so, but still been moist at night time. Spring's on its way. It's knocking at the door. And before we know it, the season proper will be over, and Scotty and I will be calling most of the final playoffs here on Every Point's a Winner. Hopefully you really enjoy it, as we're calling from a small off free-to-air TV in the studio here. I'd love to have one that is as big as the club next door to me, but it makes so much better for picking out the players. But as it is, we'll bring it to you with the excitement that we gave you in the State of Origin 2, State of Origin 3. If you do want to watch any of the archive footage, go back and click on the live, not necessarily the playlist, but you can look at it from the playlist, but you go to the live column or the live playlist, and you'll see all the previous episodes, and including the trial by fire, this game 2 and game 3, where Scotty came along and we had our biggest followers yet that night. Yeah, there is another gentleman that calls all the games BK Sport, and hats off to you, bud. It's not easy. It's a lot of dedication, but he's getting monetised for doing his, and we're still breaking the ice this year. And now, hopefully, all things being equal, we'll also be able to bring you the NRLW semi-finals and grand final for the women's rugby league here, the NRLW, and there's been some great games lately. I think Broncos and East are a mile in front. They will probably get into the playoffs straight away, and there's only a few weeks left of that. So, but the season proper is nearly at its end, and let's start off with tonight's game. There's 2 games on Friday: Warriors and Parramatta, and Storm versus Roosters. And then Saturday, there's a very interesting game with Canberra versus Tigers. And that is down in Canberra. And then we have the middle games, Dragons at 5:30 versus Seagulls. Seagulls clutching on to desperation. And that is at Cogra Jubilee. I think they'll get a pretty big crowd there, you would imagine, especially with it's after all the crappy weather over the last month in Sydney. And then you go out on the Saturday night to the Cowboys, the 12th place Cowboys, hosting the Broncos, the Brisbane Broncos, who are 5th, and that is at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, Townsville. It's going to be pretty hot up there, but all those boys would be used to it. And the last two Sunday matches is Sharks versus Knights at Sharks Stadium on the marshlands there. And the very last game is Dolphins versus Titans. Well, that could be a throw of the dice there for the Titans after losing Desi Hasler, who was leaving the club in any case, but the Rabbitohs do have the bye. Okay, let's get on to tonight's match. As I said, $1.11. Yeah, I don't even think Farlap was, for his Melbourne Cup, was that skinny. Or Burnborough for his, what was it, 8 or 9 straight victories. When there was a lady that used to invest her money, and a lot of money at that. She had a bit of money and she'd back Burnborough every start. And he strung together about 8 or 9. And I think against Flight in like a match race or a 4 or 5 horse field at Flemington, he broke down, unfortunately. He survived, so it wasn't a total smashing of the sesamoid. He just broke down, and I think he went on to breeding, but with no success. But anyway, that's another story altogether. But as far as a punter is concerned, you would not take Bulldogs at $1.11. If you have $1,000 on, you get $110. Well, not very, very good. Or you have $100, you get $10. Is it? That's 10 to 1. No, you get $1.11 for every dollar, so you're winning 11 cents. It's not good. If you like a bit of value, they've come in a little bit here in the market. Panthers have come in from $7.70 to $6.70. There is movement. Thinking that they can still beat the Bulldogs with their reserve grade side. Let's have a look at the team list here. Ins and outs. This might take a while to get through. Ins for Panthers is Austin Diaz, Billy Scott, Billy Phillips, maybe a relative of mine, Dane Laurie, David Farlay, then Jack Cole, Jackson Edgar, Jesse McLean. I wonder if that must be Casey McLean's younger brother. Luke Somerton, we know him. Luke Patea, a very good player. I think he's getting the run. Matthew Eisenhuth, we know him. Maverick Geyer, Preston Ricky, Riley Price, Sione Fione, then Sonny Luke, and Zach Lipowich. Outs, Blaze Talangi, Brian To'o, Casey McLean, Dylan Edwards, Isaiah Yayo, Isaiah Papali, well, virtually the whole side. Isaac Tungo, Liam Henry, Liam Martin, Lindsay Smith, Luke Garner, Mitch Kenny's gone. Well, Canterbury may run roughshod over them tonight with no super defender there. Moses Leotta, Nathan Cleary, Scott Sorensen, another one of their best defenders, is out, and Thomas Jenkins. Well, for the outs for Canterbury, it's Harry Hayes and Valami Kikau is out. I'll just have a little bit of coffee here. Clear that demon from the throat. And in, Daniel Saluka Fafita is in for the Bulldogs, and Inari Tuwali is in, and Curtis Moran. Okay, so that's a shame that Harry Hayes is out. Very good player, Harry Hayes. But anyway, they must have a fairly strong side, Canterbury. I'm suspecting, although he's on the bench here, Sanui Fanuka here is going to have a big game. Let's have a look here. Satuli, let's just get to that team list, will you? Okay, so it's Connor Tracy up against Dane Laurie. Jacob Kyrgios up against Jesse McLean. On the wing, Bronson Sherry up against Sione Fanua. Then Stephen Crichton, the captain, up against David Farley. Marcelo Montoya up against Paul. Oh, Paul Alamotti is finally getting a run on the wing here. Well, he may be of a person of interest there. He might get a good chance to score there tonight. Matt Burton up against Jack Cole. He's not a bad little player either. Lachlan Calvin up against Brad Schneider. He really lifts when he takes over from Cleary, Brad Schneider. Put that one down in your book. Max King up against Lurin Pattaya. Oh, that's a pretty good matchup there, especially with Lurin Pattaya. Luke Somerton, another good play against Bailey Hayward. I'm not 100% convinced about Bailey Hayward. How do you feel? Samuel Hughes against Austin Diaz. Josh Curran up against Zach Lipowich. And this time he's not benched Curran, so it's his chance to lift here. Jacob Preston against Maverick Guy. And Jamin Salmon, who I'm not fully convinced about either, against Matthew Eisenhuth, who is the captain tonight, Matthew. Well done, buddy. Interchange Kurt, man. They got some great... and the man I was telling you about is Satili Tupanua. He could be one of our bankers tonight. We'll have a look at that, see if we can get some value from him. So looking for Fafita, and then Reid Marnie, who's leaving the club. And the reserves you don't need to know about at this stage unless there's an injury in the warm-up. Now, with the Penrith side, you have Sonny Luke, Preston Ricky, Riley Price, Billy Phillips, number 17. Keep an eye out from him. If he's got my rugby league blood in him, watch out for Billy. He hasn't got a photo of Billy. We might chuck him in as a late reserve, I think. But anyway, we'll get to the TAB now. Once we get off this part here, but let's the White Raymond is the ref. Bit of a freak, the old White Raymond. Hopefully he lets the game flow a little bit. But definitely they've come in a couple of points there, Penrith, on the betting sheets. Let's see what they're paying on the TAB. Now, the forecast is 21 degrees. It's going to be 17 to 15. But tomorrow, 21, with mostly sunny. There'll be a little bit of cloud around for those other people playing the second and third game. Let's have a look here. $1.10. You can still get 7 to 1 on the tab at this stage for Penrith, if you dare. But definitely Bulldogs would want to win this one going into next week, the last round. Last time they met, it was a close one. It was in round 17 this year, 8-6. Nothing in it. Wasn't the greatest games for anytime try scorers. Let me tell you that. So I need to pay attention to that. But this time, they're missing a lot of their really good defenders, Penrith. So Canterbury may have a bit of a field day. We shall see. To score a try, let's see who opens up the market. And it's Jacob Kiraz at $1.50. Then Marcelo Montoya, same price. Anari Tuwali, $1.65. They're all unders for mine. Steve Crichton, $2.15. Even that's a bit skinny. $2.15. Connor Tracy hasn't got over forever and a day of late. He's been out with injury as well, though. Bronson Sherry, $2.15. He hasn't scored for about 6 matches. Jacob Preston hasn't scored for 4 or 5 matches. He's $2.40. Matthew Burton with that intercept tried 2 weeks ago. He's $2.50. Satili Tupanua is only $2.75, and he's a bench player. Geez, there goes my value. I thought he would have been at least 3 to 1, 7 to 2, 4 to 1. That's disheartening. That's thrown me off. Jesse McLean, $2.75 on the other wing for Penrith. Looking at the other selections, Josh Curran, 3 to 1. That's about there's for yours. Now, here's the value, and I think we're going to stand out with him, even though we should be putting a lot of Canterbury players. Paul Alamotti, and the reason why I'm sticking with his omen, we've had him for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he hasn't got the run. And luckily, that happened because it shifted up the reserve players of our banker system here have here for the anytime try scorers, and we got many good collects. But this time, poor Alamotti, he'll be going for his 4th try in a row from the last 4 games. That's really good odds at 275, so we will stand him out. But it's a bit of a lottery for the rest, let me tell you. Jack Cole's pretty good odds as well, but I don't want to stand it lead out with 2 Penrith players since I'm not really tipping them to win. It would not surprise me if they caused a massive boil over, but I can't see it. On paper, I can't see it at least. I'm going to go for massive value here for the 3rd leg, and we'll get back to the big fella, Lurin Patea. I have a massive opinion of big Lurin Patea, and I don't mind Jack Cole. So we'll leave those for the back half of the banking. But let's come back to Canterbury here. Matt Burton at 250. They're not a side you can constantly rely on here, Canterbury, to score. They don't consistently, like they used to, score every week. They've been very off colour lately. Just looking who's standing out at me for Canterbury. And I tell you what, it's not easy. Yeah, Billy Phillips is on debut. Go, Billy. Bailey Hayward, 450. That at least with Bailey Hayward, you're getting a bit of value there. 450. Now, he's supposed to stand up. Do we chuck him in? We might leave him in there for the 4th leg. 275, Tupanua. How much time is he going to get, Tupanua? I really want to lead out with him, but I'm going to stick with the safety net here of Bronson Sherry. Yes, he hasn't scored for 5 or 6 matches, but at 215, alongside of Alamotti at 275, I think that's pretty good as your 2 lead bankers there. Then for the 3rd leg, we chuck in the bench player Tupanua for Canterbury, 275. Now for the 4th leg, I want to go back to Lurin Patea for the 4th leg. And then for the 5th leg, Bailey Hayward, only at the odds I'm going there at 450. As I said, I'm not convinced by his form of late. And as our 2 reserves, Jack Cole at 6-1 for Penrith. And also we can chuck in Matt Burton there as a reserve. That's if some of the other players don't get the run. All right, that's the game for today. I think Bulldogs will win. I don't know. I think Penrith might be in the game for some time, but and I think they will score a couple of tries. It could be. I can't see it being like that previous match, 8-6, because all the great defence is missing for Penrith. So we're going to stick to 13 plus and a 1-12 victory for Bulldogs there. Let's get over to the next matches, which are really important. And the Friday matches, it is Warriors hosting in Auckland, hosting Parramatta. Parramatta, a reasonable win last start. And the thing that killed us was Moses when he went over. We had really good odds of 3-1. Really broke our hearts. We had him the previous 3 games and let him go last week. But $1.51 Warriors. Let's have a look at the team list. And ins and outs are really important. Bunty Afoa is in. Edward Cozy. It looks like Kabani Going is back. Tane Tuapiki. Geez, when is he going to score for me? I've had him every time he's played, and he's just missed the line several times. I think this could be the game. In front of his home crowd. Dane Keir is in. Dean Hawkins, Joey Luzak, and Sean Russell is back. He's a great inclusion. There's no outs from either side here at this stage. So it's full. Warriors are not full strength, let's admit that. They're missing on 3 or 4 vital cog players, which are out for season-ending injuries. All right, let's look at the matchups here. It is Charles has finally moved back to fullback again. Last week he was on the wing. Charles Nickel-Cook stayed up against Isaiah Iongi. They've got some really good players for next year, haven't they, Parramatta? Watini Zalesniak up against Lomax there. That's a really good matchup. Adam Pompey, who scored for us last week, up against Will Pensini or Penasini. And then Rocco Berry, who let us down last week, up against Dylan Brown. That's a good matchup. Rocco's going to get a bit more confidence in this game, I feel. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, what a legend, up against Josh Adokar. That is a great matchup. One of the matchups of the week. Charles Harris-Tavita up against Joash Papali'i. And then Tanner Boyd, who kicked all his goals last week, up against Captain Moses from the Starship Enterprise. And James Fisher-Harris is the captain. As I said, he's got quadriceps for biceps. I've never seen anyone with bigger arms than James Fisher-Harris. Wouldn't want to be tackled by him. But Jermaine Hopgood's a big unit. He's facing up against him there. So good luck, Jermaine. Then we got Wade Egan, who's been injured on and off all season, up against Riley Smith, who's a bit of a local favourite. Dimitri Viamonga, a monster, up against Junior Parlo. Excuse me, folks. And then we have Kurt Capel. Geez, some big boys in this team, up against Kelma Tulagi. Then you have Nia Cora, who went over last week for us, up against Jack Williams. Jack Williams is having the season of his life. Aaron Clark up against Dylan Walker. Really good matchups through the forwards all the way through here. Tiari Martin is the interchange for the Warriors, and it looks like Tuivasa Aima, who went over last week, another big unit, is also on the interchange with Stower Smith, a big fella as well, and Leka Halasema, the best interchange bench, I think, benchman that the Warriors have ever had. Talon De Silva, Matt Dury, Charlie Geimer, Jordan Samarani, all have a great chance of causing some issues when they come on. Sean Russell is the reserve. That's a shame because I would have put him into our ATTS. Let's have a look and see the last time they met. Just getting the wrong pages up here at the moment. Still getting the wrong pages. Give me 1 second here. Rightio. So let's get back here. And they're $1.51 head-to-head, Warriors, and on Sportsbet, $2.58 for Parramatta. So let's go forward here and have a look what the score was last time they met. Last time it was Warriors 20, were defeated by Parramatta 30. Now, that was round 22 of last year. So they haven't met this year. This is going to be a nice initiation for Parramatta. But a lot of people on form would be tipping Parramatta. Now, the last time prior to that in 2023, when Warriors were flying and they got to the playoffs again, was 46-10. Para was scorned at that stage, though. Okay, wins at the venue, 57 to the Warriors and only 39 to Parramatta. Wins overall, 44%, Warriors 48, Parramatta. I thought you'd just like a little bit of those stats. But Parramatta over 43 meetings have a 26-17 lead. All right. So going forward, who do you like yourself in this game? I'm leaning towards the Warriors because they've got Rocco Berry back. That's a big plus, and they got some monsters on the bench. So have Parramatta, but I would have really liked, rather than Samrani on there, I would have liked Sean Russell to get the run. That's a shame because he's had an outstanding season so far for a side that's way back in the pack. All right, let's go over to the anytime try scorers. And we'll see if we can pick up some value here on the second game. That time is at 6 o'clock too. And the Warriors on TAB are a little bit easier at $1.55 and $2.45 for Parramatta. But we'll click on that and have a look at the anytime try scorers. So leading the market is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Geez, you can never get to even money about Roger. He's such a prolific try scorer. Though on his last 6 matches, he's only scored every second match. So he's not meant to score this weekend. Put that one down in your book. Josh Adokar, he's only missed 1 try in the last 5 matches. He's even money. That's pretty good. They keep on spinning up even money about Josh Adokar. We can take it all day. Edward Cozy, 2-1. Zach Lomax, 2s. Yeah, they're not taking too many risks. Pompey, 275. Lika Halasima, 310. That's great value for a super sub like him. Will Penasini let us down last week, 310. Kirk Catewell hasn't scored for about 6 matches, 8 matches, 325. Harris Tavita scored 2 matches ago, 350. Murata Niokore, of course, scored last week and did well for us. Mitchell Moses last week, 375. Kelma Tulagi at 425. Scored about 4 matches ago. Josie Luzak scored 2 games ago at 6-1, and Big Tuivasa, 650, of course, scored last match. It was only his 3rd run in the Warriors colours there this year. Jermaine Hopgood, 850. Good odds for someone who scored last game. Anyway, keep that in the back of our mind. But let's lead out with some guys that are closer to being prolific try scorers. And I'm going to lead out my first leg with Josh Adokar. I can't see him not scoring at even money. Keep an eye on that he doesn't come into odds on, but you still got to take it. He'll only come into $1.95 if there's big money for him, but we're going to take that money up all day at 2-1. Even money at least, that is. Then let's stand out Rocco Berry as our other lead banker, our second lead banker there at 290 for the Warriors. He is a prolific try scorer. He didn't score last week, but as I said, second run back from a spell, watch out for him. Then we're going to chuck in as our third leg, Isaiah Iongi. Hasn't scored for 2 matches, but at least he's a recent try scorer. $3.10, that's really good value as well. For our fourth leg, we're going to chuck in the big fellow again, Murata Niokore at 350. And for our fifth leg, it'd be remiss of me if I left out Dylan Brown at 350. Let's chuck him in. And as our 2 reserves, Jack Williams at 425 and Tiari Martin at 450. Lika Halasima, I'm leaving out for the first time in a long, long time. If you can, if you've had a win from that first match, and you can stick him in, at least put him in the reserve bench there, Lika Halasima, because he's been so loyal to us. He's probably going to win the award for the EPAW best anytime try scorer. He's up there with Tolotol Kola, who's scored every time we've had him. So those 2 are leading the way. Kirk Cape will probably have a big game as well. And Tane Tuapika, yes, I'm leaving him out at my own peril, and Zach Lomax as well, who's hot and cold on the try scoring. Rogers too skinny at $1.70. Zalesny, you can chuck him in if you're just going to go hardcore on the Warriors there. But I think the Warriors should win that one. If they're going to be any good in the playoffs, they need to beat Parramatta in their home ground. So I'm tipping the Warriors there narrowly to beat Parramatta, though Parramatta wouldn't surprise me if they won also. Let's go across to the third match as we wend our way through here. And so it's the second of the Friday matches, Melbourne's Storm versus Sydney Roosters. And I think Melbourne have done a similar thing to Penrith, but they haven't benched up their entire side. That's the only difference as far as I know. We'll check it out. Okay. Thanks for joining us here on EPAW. And Melbourne have come up at $1.67 at Amy Stadium and Roosters 2.20. Now, the last time they met, it was a very close game in round 21 of this year. It was only last month, in fact. It was 30 Roosters just going down to Melbourne 34. Now, that was at Allianz Stadium or Allianz Stadium. Alliance. I don't know how you pronounce that. I always have issues with that, but it's a big company and it's their stadium, their sponsored stadium. Anytime try scorers here. Will Warbrick is back. Okay, first we need to look at the NRL website and get a clear vision on who's in and who's out for this game. This game is at 8 o'clock, the second game at Amy Park. And when the team lists come up, we'll go through them as per usual. Angus Hinchway has come in for the Storm. Bronson Garlick is in. We had him last week, but luckily he was scratched because it worked out in our favour as our fourth and third banker went to second and third banker. Let's have a look. There's many players out here. Josiah Pahulu, Kane Bradley, Russell Smith, Vaialapu, Blaw, Talamatu Brown, Fa'alongu is back. Oh, he's an exciting player. And Will Warbrick, big name there, coming back to Melbourne. Roosters, we've got Blake Steep in. Daniel Tupou, thank goodness he's back. Sandon Smith, Taylor Lazalu, Toby Rodwell, and Tony Rodwell there, Tom Rodwell. They're out, resting all their top fairly Group 1, I would call them Group 1 players. Elise Katoa having a rest, had a hard season, hard campaign in Origin, as all these players did that I'm mentioning. Harry Grant, Nick Meaney, Tui, Xavier Coates having a rest, Kamakamika, Nick Meaney, Josh King. And the resting out for the Roosters is Junior Tupou, and Sam Walker looks like he's gone for the season. And they really need that short kicking game of Sam Walker. I can't see anyone taking that role for the Roosters. We will have a look at the matchups and see if anything stands out here. Pappenhausen's still in the team, so that's one good thing. Bradley on the wing. Marion Seve, good player, very elusive up against Billy Smith, who's had a bit of an off last three games. Daniel Tupou back on the wing, so that's good for East. Grant Anderson up against Robert Toya. Mark Nwanganitawazi up against Tumalato Brown. They're missing an N here from this little website. Cameron Munster up against Sandon Smith. They've still got a good enough lineup here to win it. Tyrone Wishart up against Hugo Savala. Yeah, Savala has not got a great short kicking game. He's good with the bombs and long kicks, but without Sam Walker, I'm really worried about East here. Bronson Garlick up against Connor Watson. Some good matchups. Alec McDonald up against Lindsay Collins. They got enough good forwards who haven't fired a shot from last week. Angus Crichton, he had an ordinary game. Victor Radley, he's up in that scandal at the moment. Don't know how it's going to affect him. Nafahu White had a blinded 2 games ago. Interchange for the Roosters is Egg Butcher. And then we got Faketi, been hot and cold lately. Su'a Wong, C.R. Wong. And then Lolu for East. Gerald Pezet for the Storm. Lazardi, Vaialapu, and it looks like Solomon, the big fella. The surfer Solomona is also on the interchange bench. Be good to see him get a run. Now, unfortunately, I thought he was going to get a run. Fa'alongu is only a reserve. So unless there's an injury, and same with Will Warbrick, although they've been announced, they're not going to get a run unless there's some late scratchings or a pull out owing to a bad warm-up. So or the 18th man stuff. All right, let's have a look at the Roosters are still fairly strong, but geez, they need to lift from after last week. That was awful of them to lose the way they did. Let's go across to the TAB here and see if we can find us some good value. Okay, head to head, reasonable odds there. $1.67 Melbourne, Roosters 2.20. And as I said, it was a 4-point victory to Melbourne last time up here, but it's down there, so pay that into consideration there. All right, I'll be tipping Melbourne narrowly to beat Roosters here. I know Roosters will want to lift, but without Sam Walker, I think Pappenhausen can still carve them up. Though I am expecting a bigger game from Tupou and Nawanga-Nitawazi and the forwards to lift with Tedesco. So it's going to be tight, but I'm narrowly tipping Melbourne here. But looking at the market, Will Warbrick at $1.85. I swallowed some water when I got back from training this morning, and it has just lodged in my throat. It just went down the wrong way, and I couldn't stop coughing. Now that's sort of affected my throat. Ryan Pappenhausen is great value at 2.05 there. Kane Bradley is even good value there at 2-1. Let's stand out those two since we're tipping Melbourne. Ryan Pappenhausen at $2.05 and Kane Bradley, the winger, at even money 2-1. Then we're going to shift over to Daniel Tupou at $1.90. I think he's still very good value, although he's odds on for our third leg. For our fourth leg, James Tedesco at $2.50. But I also, for our fifth and sixth leg, I want to swing wide here. Let's have a look. Yeah, I want to stick in Asofa Solomona. He should get the run because he's the last of the interchange bench. 5.50, we're going to chuck him in as the fourth leg there. Now, as the fifth leg, I did tell you I want something wide. I'm chucking in Stefano Utokumano at 7-1 for Melbourne. And our reserve bencher, it'd be remiss of us to go past Billy Smith. Let's chuck in Billy Smith and Robert Toyer as our two reserve benches there, if there's a scratching from the warm-up and what have you. All right, let's move across to the next game before we get laden down. These are the three Saturday matches: Canberra versus West Tigers, St George versus Manly, North Queensland versus Brisbane, and then the two Sunday matches is Cronulla versus Newcastle, Dolphins versus Gold Coast. And head-to-head here, Canberra versus West Tigers, $1.22 Canberra. You'd expect that to be very, very skinny after the way they beat Penrith last weekend in the Golden Point. 4.30 the Tigers, and they're going to be without Dewey. So at your own risk there. Now, the last time they met, it was Canberra 16 narrowly beat West Tigers 12 in round 16 of this year. And they did enough to win. The really good sides can have those dirty wins. They really can. And let's have a look here at the ins and outs, which is one of the most important things for us here. And it is at GIO Stadium. And we'll look at the team list here. Ins and outs. Now, Danny Levi is in with Ethan Saunders. It looks like Savalo Tamale is back. Well, he'll probably be one of our bangers if he's not odds on. Fantastic. He's finally getting the run back. Trey Mooney and Manala Waitiri is back. Out is Xavier Savage, and I think he suffered an injury as far as I know. West Tigers, it's McCashy. I haven't heard of him before. Is in. Kit Lilly, yeah, we know his other Lilly brother. He's probably already in the team. Tristan Hope, Stafford Tower is in, but whether he gets the run is another question. Mapa Palangi is also in. Out there is Adam Dewey, of course, and Savage, as I said before. All right, let's go across to the matchups and have a look and see. We've got KO Weeks up against Jerome Bullitt. He had an outstanding game last week. How they lost to North Queensland in that last 10 minutes, I'm still in shock and awe. Savelli Tamale there, very, very good. Up against Taruva, who had a big game. Timoko up against Taylor May. Outstanding player, Taylor May. West Tigers going to do good with him next year. Sebastian Chris up against Stafford Tower. So he's getting the run. But as I said, since Skelton's come back, Stafford Tower does not get as many tries. He used to be one of our top anytime try scorers here. But since Skelton's got, they always throw a cutout past the Skelton because he's got an electric speed. But Stafford Tower has as well, but he's down on confidence because they keep on cutting him out. So, and the fact if they could spin him round and put him on the other centre, I think he'd fare a lot better in the try scoring department. But he's been a bit of a thorn in our side this season, in the back half of the season anyway. Jerome Luai went over for that strange try last weekend, up against Ethan Strange. That's a great matchup. He's the captain. Then Jamal Fogarty up against Latu Fainu. Very, very good matchup, that one. Josh Pa'ali'i up against Tyrell May. Another good matchup. A lot of experience coming under Pa'ali'i there. Tom Starling up against Coruscant. Really good matchups here. I think it's going to be a decent match. And then Tarpany, the captain. Joseph Tarpany up against PARLAY. Hudson Young. For some reason, since Origin, he goes that throat issue again. He has not scored a try since before Origin in the round proper. We used to get regular doubles with or two-leg parlays with Hudson Young. I wonder if this is the game where he's finally going to break that ice since his Origin debut. Corey Horsburgh, Zach Hosking. Good side up against Alex Twoll and Fainu, the brother, Sione Fainu, and Samuela Fainu. Got some good players. Benching there is Heath Mason, Royce Hunt, another big man, Charlie Murray, and Daniel Suka, Mariotta. I like him, big fella. Doesn't get much time though. Morgan Smithies, Sammy Sasagi, one of the best replacements in the period for Canberra. A great subby. Owen Paddy Hot and Cold. When he's good, he's really good. He's the first of the interchange of 14 there. So we'll be seeing him first. And then my voice is starting to go now. Thank you very much. Okay, they're the matchups. Let's have a look at the TAB, what they're offering us. I don't want to bet them. Okay, now the last time they met, as I said to you, was a 4-point victory to Canberra. Looking at the try scorers here, opening up the bank here. Oh, what a shame. Tamale's $1.65. We might have to link him up at the backside, but can't stand him out at $1.65. Here at every points a winner, and for ATTS, I'll only ever give you value. If you want to put odds on yourself, quite welcome to. But if you have $1.65 into $1.75, trust me, you'd be lucky if you get $2.50 back, if that. And so anyone can pick those players, but the skill here is to pick the regular try scorers and the try scorers with the matchups with the value. So once you get those first two legs, you're set for the rest of the game. If you can get one or two of those first legs before half time, you've got all those other players to get your doubles and your three-leg or your trebles, your three-leg parlays. Very rarely here will tip you a four-leg parlay, but the study I've done over the last 2 years, your best results are two-leg parlays first and foremost, about 5 of them, and with your two-leg bankers. which may run up to 10 bets, but if they're only $1 each or $1.50, your starting bank's going to cover that easy. And you have your two main try scorers as your single bets. But yeah, four-leggers are just too hard to get, I'm afraid, unless you know there's going to be, say, 10 tries to 2 or something like that. Then you can have a four-legger if you're lucky enough to get it. Ethan Strange, 275. He's been one of our top try scorers here over the last period, over the last 6 weeks. Mapapalungi is 310. Simi Sasagi, great value there at 310 also, but he won't be starting. He'll be coming off the bench. That's the risk you take. Noel Martin at 425. Josh Papali'i, 550. Wouldn't have been good if he went over. He hasn't gone over since his anniversary game. Jerome Luai, can't see him going 2 weeks in a row, 550. And not against Canberra down there, no thanks. Atta Mariotti hasn't gone over for about 6 or 7 games. He is 750. Fanua PARLAY, 850. Nearly went over last week. I've got a feeling Matthew Timoko is going to be one of the main try scorers here, just looking at this. Gerald Skelton, geez, he cost us a lot of money last week. We had 2 3-leggers relying on Gerald Skelton to go over, and it was the one time he didn't go over. Oh, that hurt us in that Tigers match, the last game last weekend. I don't want to lead out with him, but he's better value than usual, 230. Hudson Young, got to take him on trust. I was going to put him in there, but I'm going to stand out Matthew Timoko. He's a big unit. I think he's going to cause a lot of issues up the middle there for the Tigers. And Matthew Timoko will be our banker at 230. I really want to put in Savello Tamale, but at $1.65, it's not going to give you anything. Let's chuck in Ethan Strange because he's in the form of his life at 275 as our other banker 2. Jareem Buller's been having an outstanding season, 275, great value. 4th leg, Terrell May, fantastic season so far, 275. And Sami Sasagi is our 5th leg at 310. Then we're going to swing it back to Samuel Afinu as our reserve banker, along with Tom Starling at 550 for Canberra. All right, that game is done and dusted. I won't be tipping West Tigers without Adam Dewey. I think they're going to put up a good fight, though. Canberra shouldn't take them so lightly. And they want to win the minor premiership by winning this match. St George Illawarra up against Manly is the next match of the Saturday matches. $1.80 St George Illawarra, Manly even money. Well, if Manly play half as good as what they did last week, they'll have a fairly good chance here. Now, the last time they met, it was St George 20, narrowly defeating Manly, and that was at Brookie. This time it's at Congra Jubilee, so they might get a few more decisions going their way, St George. And I'll just go to the anytime try scorer there. And Tyrrell Slane will be the favourite at $1.75. But first, we need to have a close look at the ins and outs and at least some of the matchups to give us a bit of a heads up here. Okay, why is it going to that page and not the draw? We'll click it open again, the NRL.com website. See if it can give us the draw now. Thank you. It's finally got on the right page. And this game's at 5:30 on Saturday. Let's have a look here. So, yeah, it was only 2 points in it last time, round 7 this year. Close one, 20-18 to St George. But winning at this venue, St George 58 as opposed to West Tigers 22 out of the 70 times 70 or 80 times they've met. Okay, let's go across to the anytime try scorer. Well, let's have a look at the matchups first. See if it can give us a bit of a heads up. $1.92 on Sportsbet. $1.92. Geez, that's skinny, isn't it? For St George. $1.92 each of. Eagles also $1.92. That's on Sportsbet, so it's a little bit different on TAB. All right, let's go across here to the teams and the team lists. So why is that one coming up? Thank you. Click on the team list again. This time I got the right page. Thank you. TAB. Clint Gutherson up against Tom Travojevic. Christian Tuapoloto, he said his second run back from the spell now should be a lot better. Up against Jason Saba, an elusive winger there. And then you have Buchanan, the young kid from the South Coast, up against Tolotau Kola. Good luck with that one. Matthew Fine up against Tommy Talau. Terrell Sloan on the wing up against Hopewadi. Yeah, so I think he'll be well fared on the wing this time, Hopewadi. Luke Brooks up against King Togia, who I've got a reasonable opinion about. Kyle Flanagan up against Dale Cherry Evans, who is the captain, of course, for Manly. Matthew Lodge up against Big Emre Gula. Damien Cook up against Jade Simpkin. Jaden Sewer's back, by the looks of it here, against Ben Travojevic, who scored for us last week. Jack DeBellin up against Jazz Tavaga. Hopefully he's got over that big fat lip he had. And the interchange, Jacob Little, of course, with looks like Aaron Shook for Melbourne, for Manly, should I say. Luciano Leilua is interchanged there with Nawali, Caleb Nawali, and it looks like Sele up against Ethan Bullimore, had a big game last week, and Pacific Utonga up against Sipley. All right, some big boys from Manly. They need to win it, obviously. Depending on the other results, they still need to hold their breath, but they need to win it if they're giving themselves a look and hoping that East and Dolphins both lose. So that's what their scenario is. And they need to put a few tries on as well for their for and against. Okay, then we've had a look at the matchups. Great idea. All right, let's have a look at the matchups. We saw that. So Terrell Sloan at $1.75. Clayton Farlalo, $1.95. Corey Allen, 2s. Lehigh Hopewadi, 2s. Tolotau Collis. It's a wonder he's not odds on yet. He scored the last 4 matches, and we were on him every time. Aaron Shoup at 3s. Hayden Buchanan at 310. Jaden Sewer, 310. Big unit, Sewer. Is he going to be fit enough first run back from the spell? And how much time is he going to get on the field before they sub him out? Jacob Little, first run back from the spell. You've got to ask yourself, is it worth the risk? Big Emre Gula, 650. Matthew Lodge, 650, scored the last 2 matches. Bullimore scored last match, 650. Okay, let's find a lead banker here. Matthew Fine, it's very good odds there, 280. Let's lead out here with St George's Matthew Fine, even though we're tipping Manly. Matthew Fine and Tolotau Kola. I can't not have him as lead banker here, even though it's even money. You're going to get a bit of value from Matthew Fine there, or Matthew Fee Guy, however you want to pronounce his name. We'd have to hear it from the horse's mouth. So Tolotau Kola for Manly and St George there, Matthew Fine as our main 2 bankers. Then we're going to go a little bit wider here. Ben Travojevic, good odds there, 4-1. I'm going to chuck him in for our 3rd leg there. Ben Travojevic is our 3rd leg. As our 4th leg, I'm going to spin it back to Lehigh Hopewadi on the wing. for Manly at even money. Don't really want to take odds on Turbo or odds on Christian Tuapoloto or Sloan at $1.75. So I'm going to stick with Corey Allen at even money. There's not much value in this game. For some ungodly reason, the TAB have tightened the screws on this game. And so I'm going to tell you to tread lightly with this game. I can't really spin any major upset there for you, except Ben Travojevic is our third leg at 4-1. He's the guy you want to cross your fingers for. And then chucking Jacob Little to do something unique there at 5-1 as our fifth leg, and as our emergency banker for St George, Emre Gula, and the big unit, and Ethan Bullimore as the other reserve if there's any late pullouts. Okay, let's get on to the last of the matches here for Saturday. It's North Queensland. Just having a look at the time. We're just in front of time now. It's North Queensland 2:30 up against Brisbane 162. Up in Townsville, of course. Now, the last time they met, it was a win to the Broncos 26-16, and that was in round 2 of this year. And that was where the Cowboys did not win. I think their first 3 or 4 matches were losses, possibly 4 or 5, and then they started winning back-to-back. Just get on that try scorer there as we head across to the matchups, ins and outs. That's really important too. Let's get off that page there and move to the ins and outs. Check the weather too, because the weather could change by Sunday, and Saturday night may bring some showers. Ins and outs here. So in for we've already done them, have we not? No, Lafayette, Leo Ife, Siamoni Laife is in for Manly. Michael Cheekan, Gordon Chen Kung Tung, and Clayton Falalo. Yeah, we did them. And Hammer Sailor, Jack DeBellin is in. Yeah, Jaden Searle. Yeah, all right. So we don't need to go any further than that on that game. Just having a look for this game there. That's the page I want. The ins and outs and team list for the Broncos here and the Cowboys. Now, Jackson Barlow is in for the Cowboys. Caden Lars, that looks like a German name there, Caden Lars. Marley Butagami is in with Nicholas Limas for the Cowboys, and Adam Reynolds is in with Brendan Perkura, Deloise Hoyter, and Jack Madden is also in for the Broncos. So it's a fairly strong Broncos side. I can't see them losing this, though Cowboys may stand up here. They've got nothing to lose, so that apart from playing for the Guernsey, playing for pride, and playing for revenge, both sides. In particularly that grand final game that was won by Jonathan Thurston with a field goal in extra time. So there'll be a bit of pushing and shoving, I reckon, in this match. And a lot of players do bounce across from North Queensland to Brisbane. They do change sides quite a bit year to year. Tom Dearden is the captain here up against Ben Hunt. Good match up there. Where are they sticking Reynolds? Let's have a look here. Where are they actually sticking him? Is he going to start? I doubt whether he'd start. Adam Reynolds is the reserve. They can't take a risk. They want to really, if they've got a good chance in the playoffs, they want to have him fresh. But he's there as a reserve, so he won't get the run. Katoni Stagg's been outstanding over the last 4 or 5 weeks up against Jackson Purdue. Jackson's going to have to be on his best behaviour there because he's not easy to get around. Katoni Staggs too, a really good defender. Billy Walters up against Jake Clifford, who's had a big game of late. Jordan McLean up against Corey Jensen. Corey Pikes in there in the 9. Payne Haas scored the easiest of tries last week up against Big Jackson Tamalalu. Had a big game last week, Tamalalu. Jeremiah Nanu got us a beautiful, beautiful double straight off the back last weekend. Ruben Cotter had a big game too. This is not going to be I can't see it being a total runaway. Sometimes Cowboys switch off and they just don't tackle enough, and that's when a really good Broncos side like this lineup can put 4 or 5 tries on any team. But then they sort of take the foot off the accelerator. That's when Cowboys with Dearden and the boys can bounce back a bit. So I don't think it's going to be, although I'd be tipping 13 plus and 1 to 12 Broncos, I'd be mainly sticking to 1 to 12. I don't think there's too much rivalry here between these two clubs to look beyond 1 to 12. But, of course, that'd be the obvious selection. And if you're a Cowboys fan, you'd want them to win just for the pride, just for the sake of it. It's Drinkwater up against Reece Walsh. It's a pretty good match up there. Valami up against Karapani. Jackson Purdo up against Stags. We've already gone over those. So let's get to where the money is. We want to get to where the money is. Karapani leads up the account here at $1.75. Dean Mariner went over twice last week, $1.75. They're way too skinny. Jesse Arthur's $1.80. Reece Walsh, $1.85. Braden Burns, $1.90. Geez, they're giving no odds with the wingers these days, aren't they? Jackson Barlow, $2.10. Shibasaki, $2.30. Jackson Purdue, $2.75. There's a bit of value there. Laybutt hasn't scored for 4 or 5 matches, $2.75. Dearden, $3.25. Geez, Tommy's been so good this year. Let's lead out with him. If you're going to give me $3.25, I'm going to snap him up. I don't care. He's such a great player. One of the best in the game. $3.25, Tom Dearden. He's going to be our first banker there, although we're tipping the Broncos. And then we're going to have Shibasaki as our second leg. Gemat Shibasaki at $2.30. For our third leg, we can't leave out Katoni Stags at $2.25. And then we're chucking in Reece Walsh at $1.85 for our fourth leg. For our fifth leg, we're going to come to Jackson Barlow there at $2.10 for North Queensland as our fifth leg. Jeremiah Nanai as our first reserve. And our second reserve, I have to put him in because he's going to kill me if I don't. Billy Walters. Every time I don't have him, the bugger scores. And every time I have him, he doesn't score. And he's not that impact player. When he's on the bench, he can come and run out a dummy half when both of the sides are really tired. And he'll score a lot of those dummy half tries, a bit like a Harry Grant style. But starting, he doesn't have that explosivity that he usually has. And there's a new word for you, explosivity. All right. So let's get across here. And there are our bankers. Let's go to the first of the Sunday matches. Then we're the penultimate. And then with this penultimate round, our last coverage will be the Dolphins versus the Gold Coast up there at Suncorp, I believe. Check the weather, though, folks. Okay, now, Cronulla in Newcastle. We know of Adam O'Brien sacking, so Newcastle are $5.80. They're already thinking about their end-of-season trip. $1.14. Sharks need to prove themselves here. They're running 6th on the ladder. Now, the last time they met, Sharks put the knife through the hapless and very injured and wounded Knights. 34-14, so 20-point victory there. And let's get down to the try scorers here. It's Sione Katoa at $1.55. Ronaldo Molitalo, $1.55. Kailero is back at $1.85. We need to go and see if he's actually getting a run or is he just on the bench. We need to just go to that last match and have a look if he's been positioned to play here. Team lists. Is he in? No, Hiroti is still in. Kailero is in fact. Thank you. Kailero was one of our greatest anytime try scorers for Cronulla. That's when we used to win off some of the Cronulla games when Kale was playing. So he's back, and he'll probably score with Hiroti if Newcastle don't tackle. Dane Gagai's moved back to fullback, and Dominic Young on the wing, Schiller in the centres. Still all that inexperience there. Bradman Best, Fletcher. Hunt has moved into the wing. Jake Arthur had a shocker last week. Couldn't hold a freaking ball. Hopefully you have a better game, son. Jack Cogger, hot and cold Jack. He's good when he's good. Jacob Saifidi, I can't get him to go over for a try for me. His brother seems to be a better player, unfortunately, but he's up with the Dolphins and he's been injured for the season, virtually the whole season. Phoenix Crossland, back to the dummy half there in the 9. Tommy in the forwards. Leo Thompson up against Toby Rudolph. Jermaine McEwen, unlucky not to score last week, in fact, which resulted in a Bradman Best try. Pierce Paul, the Englishman, up against Teague Wilton. Tyson Frizzell up against Jesse Colquhoun. And the interchange bench, we won't need to worry about it. Talakai's gone back to the bench, in fact. Mustn't be playing that well in the centres. But now that Kale Hero's back, that's why they're benching Talakai. Watch out for him. He might cause a bit of damage when he comes on. Okay, so we've had a look at the matchups. Let's go to the TAB, as I promised you. William Kennedy, 205. Kale Hero, geez, I don't like the price of him. But being a prolific try scorer, the last 5 matches he scored 5 times. And maybe one of those games he got a double, but on this little chart here we got from the TAB, it doesn't say that. Braden Trindle, 275. Billy Burns, 3-1. Teague Wilton, 3s. Not bad value there, Teague. Nathan Nicholas Hines, 350. Dane Gagai, 350. Bradman Best, 350. Cole Hewen, 425. Jesse. I'm not overly convinced in this game because the 2 or 3 players I want to stand out are really skinny, including Kale Hero. And Hiroti is probably the best value out of the 2 centres. Marwin Hiroti at 225, but I don't want to stand them out. It really is pin the tail on the donkey here. I tell you what, I really want to see Cronulla play like a final 8 side. They're going to need to. I'm going to stand out a forward that's going to come from the bench here. Crazy, but strange as it is. 425, Jesse Colquhoun, 425. That's really good value. I'm just going to go for value here because, as I said, it's like pinning the tail on the donkey. Adam Fanua-Blake at 350. He's our other leg there for Cronulla, our standout. And then we're going to head over to Teague Wilton. So I'm just looking at Teague's price here. Why can't I see Teague Wilton there? Adam Fanua-Blake's 350. Where's Teague? There, he's a bit skinnier. That's why he's further up the list. 3-1. I'm just going to go for value here. I don't really care much for this game. I'm probably going to half my bet and just hope that the big forward score. Billy Burns, chuck him in there for the 4th leg at 3-1. And I really don't care about this game, as I said, apart from if Cronulla's any good, they'll win this game easily and play like a final 8 side. I don't want to chuck in William Kennedy. He's a hog, and I won't do that. I won't chuck him in. We've got to put one Newcastle player in there. Let's put in Greg Marzu at 260 now. If he doesn't hit the run for the 5th leg, chuck in Nicholas Hine as the reserve and Bradman Best to score in his second last match, playing for Newcastle there at Shark Park. I don't like the game. I'll be honest with you. I think it's a mismatch. Newcastle might play better than what they usually do, but I'm just going to stand out all those big-priced Cronulla players because all the ones I want, including Kale Hero, are just too short. Let's go to the last match, and then we're going to finish up here, ladies and gentlemen. And then tune into that big match tonight. The 7-1 Panthers reserve grade side up against the Bulldogs, who need to win that match. All right, let's go across here to the NRL and have a quick look at the matchups. Dolphins versus Gold Coast. This is another non-plus game for me. Of course, the Dolphins would be hoping for East to lose, hoping that they can beat the Gold Coast now that Desi's been sacked. Last time they met, it was Dolphins at Seabus Stadium in Gold Coast 36, destroying Gold Coast 10. The Dolphins 36-10 the last time they met, and that was in around Easter of this year. So let's look at the try scorers. There's Jermaine Osako at $1.75. Jaden DeGroot, a good price there at even money. Trey Fuller, $2.30. I think this is going to, I'll be honest with you, I think this is going to be a try fest. I'm sensing there may be 14 to 15 tries in this match. I could be wrong. We better have just one quick little geezer at the ins and outs to see if we're not overlooking something. I could just rush and give you the tip. But no, I want to be a little bit more professional here. Ins and outs. James Walsh is in for the Dolphins. Kenneth Bromwich. Now, that's a big inclusion, including it's John Fianaganafohu. How the hell do you say that name? Fianagafono. Okay, well, good luck there. Cody Nicarima is in. I haven't heard of Fianagafono before. Peter Holler and LJ Nonu is in. Carter Gordon, Kobe Bai is in. Sean Mullany and Simpkins. Tuapimki Simpkins is in for the Gold Coast. Out is Finney Fuliaki, and Max Fine is out for the Dolphins. All right. I'm looking at value again with this match. I'd like to see the Dolphins stand up with their winning form. I'm going to stand out Jeremy Marshall-King. He scored his last two matches. He's been lethal at a dummy half on the burst. As I said, I don't think Gold Coast are going to turn up and tackle in this match. Could be tied early, but I think the second part of the first half, the last 20 of the first half, and the next 40 after that, I can't see it being a slogfest of defence. I think it's going to open up. We're going to stand out Sam Verrills for the Gold Coast at $5.50. I really like Sam Verrills. And Jeremy Marshall-King, all good value there, $4.75. And then we're going to head across to Tino F or Tino Fasamawali at $4.50. And then that's the third leg. For the fourth leg, we're going to chuck in Oren Keeley. He's due at $3.50 for the Dolphins there. And then we're going to spring it back to Cody Nicarima at 3-1 for our fifth leg. And our sixth reserve leg, it would be remiss of me to leave out Connolly Lemu Elu at $2.75. So thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Hopefully you've all got them down. And going forward to the match, go the Bulldogs. We've got the blue and white on the background. A big hello to all the boys up there at Nova. And they know who they are. And then I'm going to say a big hello to one of the biggest Canberra fans we know in Stephen Lammy. Best of luck this weekend, mate. You should have the minor premiership wrapped up, sewn up this weekend. Okay, guys, next week is the last week, but first we're going to get through these rounds. Not that much value in probably about 4 out of the 8 games. Just be selective. Watch the weather. Half your bets if you see any rain or you smell any rain because of the ball handling. And may the best teams win this weekend. There may be 1 or 2 upsets, but it looks like it's going to go as planned. All right, until we do our review, let's hope we've got more bickies this weekend as well. Thanks for joining us here on Every Point's a Winner. Axel Phillips for now. Best of luck tonight.